All right, go ahead and get this out of the way. The Hurricanes suck.
Bah, 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 bah.
I hate you guys.
Hey
I
man,
hate
we love you too, man.
this.
You just gave us another W. So
What a disgusting game that was.
hey man, we
Hey
like that
man,
to find out.
I, I guess. Well, if push comes to shove, I always root for y'all by proxy when my team is out of it. So if it comes down to that, I'm definitely going to take the Canes in any game against anybody
Yeah, man.
in the SEC or something like that. So whatever.
It's respect between Florida State and Miami. You know, it's one of the better rivalries for a reason, and it's because it's a lot of mutual respect, but also at the same time, you know, a slight disdain. But I'll tell you like this, okay? Nothing gives me more pleasure than watching the Gators lose. Okay, I don't care what goes on, the Gators must lose.
Yeah.
So it is not the same relationship that we have with the Gators. It's not even close. So yeah, man, all respect due, man. And yeah, man, looks like we're having a good run. So I'll enjoy it for the time being. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that in the in-state matchup, the in-state rivalry, the Gators are a distant third currently.
Unbelievable. I mean, they're trash, bro. I'll root for FAU, FIU, Central Florida, South Florida.
Florida
Okay,
Gulf,
Florida
Gulf
Gulf
Coast.
Coast. Okay. All right. Before I root for anything, you know what I'm saying? Kaiser Community College. Okay. All right. I'll vote for any damn body before the Gators.
Well, yeah, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. JD Wins Dogon SS. Thank you for joining us for another stream of Conscious Approach on YouTube. Beginning things off with me in moratorium over the beatdown that took place over the weekend at the hands of the Hurricanes. We'll see how the rest of the season plays out, but it certainly was a very disconcerting experience that I went through over the weekend. But in other positive news, the Chiefs lost Monday Night Football this week with Patrick Mahomes throwing a pick six. So that was very enjoyable.
Yes.
So I did get some of my joy back from watching that. That was great.
Much like the Gators losing, pleasing America, so does the Chiefs. Even with the classic Mahomes, that was not pass interference. That was a touchdown, and the referee's going, "It was a touchdown." I'm like, boy, this is classic Chiefs football. So I'm glad they lost. I say that.
Yeah, ditto. But yeah, we're back. JV Wins Dogon SS. As always, check us out on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify for all those areas in which we are now located. You can get us, download us via podcast, and stream us audio style if you're not in position to check us out on YouTube. And as I always like to say, we don't take for granted the effort that one must take in order to subscribe to any piece of content. It does signify that you value that content enough to want to regularly be notified whenever there's a new development there. So as someone who doesn't subscribe to very much myself, the things that I do subscribe to, I subscribe to for a reason. So if you are subscribed to this channel, you're also subscribed to this channel for a reason. And we greatly appreciate that. We certainly don't take it for granted. But yeah, with that out of the way, man, we'll go ahead and get things started. We got a few interesting things to talk about on the channel tonight. The first thing that we are going to get into are comments made by Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle was recently at a comedy festival in Saudi Arabia. And it was interesting because he made some comments about how it's easier to speak freely in Saudi Arabia than it is to speak in America. You know, what with all the cancellations and all of that kind of stuff going on. These supposed assaults on free speech that are currently taking place in America. Dave Chappelle feels some type of way about it. Now, some context does need to be put forth here, I feel. Dave Chappelle, although it does not bother me personally, he has made a lot of people upset, particularly in recent memory with his independent status, moving over to Netflix and doing his stand-up specials in which he's owned by no one And so he can basically do and say whatever he wants because he can't get canceled because he's not under contract by anybody. No one's paying him necessarily. He's kind of his own entity. And so with that comes a certain level of artistic freedom that he has certainly exercised in recent history. And he's made a lot of people upset, and most notably, the LGBTQ community with a lot of his jokes. Some of the things that he has said throughout his routine has drawn the ire of a lot of people who are either a part of that community directly or allies slash sympathizers. So just wanted to put that out there because he's dealt with his own variety of you know um, free speech dissenters aimed his way. We'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this says Dave Chappelle criticizes free speech in America at Saudi Arabia Comedy Festival. Dave Chappelle raised eyebrows over the weekend after he used his set at the inaugural Riyadh Comedy Festival in Saudi Arabia to blast the status of free speech in the United States. Per the New York Times, the comedian was performing before an audience of 6,000 when he remarked, "Right now in America, they say that if you talk about Charlie Kirk, that you'll get canceled. I don't know if that's true, but I'm going to find out." He added, "It's easier to talk here than it is in America." Chappelle went on to suggest that he feared retaliation once he returned to the U.S. "They're going to do something to me that I can't say what I want to say," he said from the stage. His comments sparked immediate discussion, especially around about the irony of criticizing American free speech laws while performing in Saudi Arabia. The country's media outlets are government licensed, and a wide range of speech is prohibited, from dissent against the monarchy to promoting activist causes. In 2022, doctoral student Salma Al Shihab was sentenced to 34 years in prison for retweeting women's rights activists, though her sentence was later reduced after global backlash. Performances at the Riyadh Comedy Festival itself reportedly came with restrictions. Comedian Atsuko Okasuka shared terms of the appearance contract online, which barred performers from criticizing religion or the Saudi royals. Meanwhile, comic Tim Dillon claimed he was dropped from the lineup over a resurfaced joke about Saudi Arabia after being offered $375,000 to perform. Several comedians defended the festival as an important cultural exchange. Bill Burr, who performed during opening night, and praised the event on his podcast. "It was great to experience that part of the world and to be a part of the first comedy festival over there in Saudi Arabia. The royals loved the show. Everyone was happy. Everyone was happy. The people that were doing the festival were thrilled. The comedians that I've been talking to are saying, dude, you can feel the audience wanted it. They want to see real stand-up comedy. It was a mind-blowing experience. Definitely top 3 experiences I've had." The Riyadh Comedy Festival, billed on Saudi tourism sites as the world's largest comedy festival, features more than 50 international performers, including Chappelle, Kevin Hart, Aziz Ansari, and Gabriel Iglesias. But the event has also been accused of comedy washing the Saudi regime's record of human rights abuses in exchange for lucrative payouts. Not every comedian was willing to take part. Shane Gillis said during an episode of his Matt and Shane Secret podcast that he was offered a significant bag to perform but turned it down. So there's no video of this, I would say, for obvious reasons, but there's quotes from Chappelle talking about how you can't really talk in America and so on and so forth. So what did you think about what he had to say?
Tongue in cheekish, good bit. I don't think he really means that, and I think that's what makes it the joke. But what also makes it the joke is that he could be serious and he could be right. So all in all, I think it's fair. I think it's a good bit. The thing that got me with all of this stuff is Saudi Arabia striking again. We covered last week the purchase of EA for upwards to $55 billion. And there was a conversation going on with that in the sense that Saudi Arabia is also being accused of sports washing. hence their um, activities in boxing, golf, and now with gaming, peering over into gaming sports. So they got accused for that, and now for this, which when I heard Dave Chappelle in Saudi Arabia telling jokes, I'm like, is that a joke? Like, what is that? What is Saudi Arabia doing with comedy and a comedy festival at that? So for them to Saudi Arabia to get accused for comedy washing, uh, these washing terms are hysterical. Um, and apparently they're washing away, human rights violations and other things. So, my question for those washers, is America being accused of sports washing, Hollywood washing, streaming washing for their things that they have going on. So, I find that funny that it's easy to point fingers at another country. But all in all, I think that Dave Chappelle, he brings up a good point in the sense that no, absolute freedom of speech is not coming to a halt, and we touched upon that with the Jimmy Kimmel situation. I don't think it's getting close to the point where you can say the wrong critical thing and you can end up in jail. I don't think we're there. I don't kind of think we're that close to that, but we are definitely in the presence of, if you say the wrong thing, socially you'll be reprimanded to the point to where you might as well be in some type of prison.
Yeah.
And so with all of that stuff going on, yeah, I 1000% agree with that. And last thing I'll say before I let you go is that due to Hollywood washing and network television washing and social media washing, the masses of people have been conditioned into a social justice ideology. I'm sitting there trying to watch the Florida State game. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to ABC for trying to get us the immersion that we wanted because we couldn't be at Doak. You know what I'm saying? They dragged it out long enough. I'm like, can we start the game? But who doesn't get enough of Chief Osceola? Okay. Now in the 90s, it felt a little bit more mystique-y. It felt like the guy that was on horseback was actually had some native blood. Like the guy that was not like the guy that was crying a tear in that commercial about the trash. This guy actually looked like he had, some ties to casinos. And it was so much better back then, but I digress. So Chief Osceola, he's riding on horseback. He throws flaming spear into logo. People go crazy. Now I'm sitting here watching the game with somebody, and the first thing they say is like, "What the hell is this?" He said, "Is that a white man in Indian face slamming a spear? That's racist." And I go, well, that's not racist. You know what I'm saying? It's what do they call it? It's the thing that they use for college football. Not a tradition for sure, but the pageantry. There you go. That's pageantry, man. It's just sports being sports, man. I don't look into it that much. But where did that mindset come from? And that mindset came from years and years of saying that, hey, that's, it's a group of people over there. You're being a little too aggressive with your stereotypes. That's foul. And, coming from a world where Dave Chappelle's whole industry is predicated on doubling down on stereotypes and other things, they get that same level of treatment if they make, Native American man on horseback slam spear into logo. So them trying to make a joke like that, people go, that's not funny. There's real people out here that actually suffer from depression. It's like, come on, man. I can't make a joke about mental health. No. So yeah, man, the way that the way the society goes is that society puts you in its jail. There's no physical jail as of yet. But point well taken from Dave. I agree with him in the sense that it is getting a little sketchy nowadays, but we're far from it being absolutely illegal, at least hopefully. But what are your thoughts, bro, on what Dave Chappelle had to say in Saudi Arabia, of all places, saying that, hey, man, I got more freedom of speech over here than I do over there. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, he has more freedom of speech over there because of the things that they tried to cancel him for over here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I said before, Chappelle has been the subject of attempted cancellations multiple times,
Yeah.
primarily for his LGBTQ themed jokes. And he has taken tremendous exception to that and doubled down. And he's, of course, in a privileged position to be able to do so because, like, I suppose Netflix can, like, decide to no longer partner with him for his stand-up routines, but that's not going to stop him or make him go away because all he'll do is go to another you know, corporation, form another partnership, and then you can just stream his comedy over there. So there's really no trying to get him to go away is kind of an exercise in futility so long as he's not employed by anybody. And he is not employed by anybody, nor will he be employed by anybody. So there's all this hoopla over the need to silence him because of the danger inherent in his comedy. And he's taken tremendous exception to that. And what makes what he said fly, particularly in Saudi Arabia, is because in that part of the world, they are ideologically more closely aligned to the way Dave Chappelle sees that situation in
Mm-hmm.
terms of them not being completely allied in, you know, trying to, you know, be sympathetic towards people who live that lifestyle, for lack of a better way to express
Good
it.
job.
Yeah. So like because they frown upon that over there on that side of the world, and he has engaged in a form of comedy that is viewed as frowning upon that. There's a synergy there, which makes his presence in that part of the world, speaking on free speech, somewhat makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why he would say it in that particular spot, and I understand why he would feel as though it's a safe space to speak that way in that particular spot, given his unique history with some of the stuff that they tried to cancel him over. But the thing about comedy is like one of the first things in terms of like the arts that really had a microscope zeroing in on it in terms of we need to correct this. Television and movies and sports and music and things like that followed, but comedy was one of the first things where it was like, ooh, what we've been doing this entire time has actually been wrong and inappropriate. So you either need to evolve what you've been doing all this time or go away because those jokes will no longer fly. I've lost count of the amount of stand-up routines that I have went back and rewatched from the 90s and 2000s that, according to today's social standards, have aged very poorly. Um, Bernie Mac's stand-up routine from Kings of Comedy would
Man,
not survive today.
I would
It,
not.
it would not survive today as hilarious as it is. It would not survive today. A lot of sitcoms from the 90s with some of the jokes going on in a lot of those shows, they don't age well. So comedy largely is under attack, in my opinion.
Mhm.
You can group comedy in with like masculinity in terms of some of the things that are currently under siege in the wake of today's hyper liberal social justice climate that we're living in. So I don't blame comedians like Chappelle and Bill Burr who take exception to the way that they've chosen to hone their craft their entire lives, and the fact that they have largely not been outside of a comedy stage trolls, particularly, unless you push them to the point in which they're going to do it on purpose to try to prove a point.
Mhm.
So like, I've never been a fan of the way comedy is being treated with a lot of this stuff. I think open dialogue with respect to all lifestyles, genders, races, sexual orientations, even when it comes to making jokes, is like fair game as far as I'm concerned, because at the very least, it sparks discussion. And I don't think there's anything wrong with sparking discussion. I think trying to silence comedy is in a roundabout way counterproductive because it also stymies open discussion. And when you stymie open discussion, you can't reach the point in which you can find some sort of a common ground of mutual understanding. I think comedy has always served that unique purpose, but it is being effectively washed out by a lot of social movements in westernized countries that are trying to rewrite the rules in terms of determining what is and is not disagreeable. Now, notice the word that I use there is disagreeable, because disagreeable points of view should always have a forum and an opening to be discussed,
Mm-hmm.
and they should always have their fair shake. They should always have their day in court, so to speak. But what has happened in this country in particular is disagreeable has been conflated with like reprehensible.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what I'm saying? Like hate speech has never been something that has been protected by free speech, meaning you can't engage in hate speech and say, well, I'm protect. You can't take that right away from me to talk like that because that's my freedom of speech. Well, hate speech isn't protected when it comes to free speech. But there's a difference between hate speech and disagreeable. But I think what has happened in comedy has been one of the victims of this is in a lot of ways, disagreeable and hate have been conflated. And so when Bill Burr or Dave Chappelle or any one of these more edgier comics gets on stage and does their routine, instead of it being interpreted as disagreeable, and wow, even though I'm made uncomfortable by this, it opens up the floodgates for some discussion. It's being interpreted as outright hate speech, can't be allowed. We got to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the thing that I think comedians rather, are speaking out against, and they don't like that. And I'm inclined to agree with them. And listen, I used this example before. Growing up appreciating comedy when I was a teenager and even in my 20s before it became completely watered down, I had to deal with, and I brought these names up before. I had to deal with comedians like Amy Schumer and Lisa Lampanelli, who would basically, in my opinion, use their platform to denigrate black men. That's how I took it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could be reading too much into it, but I feel like when you are a overweight white woman and your routine is centered around making jokes about how you can't date men from your own community, and so you go over here to these black men because they'll take a plump plus size white woman. I don't appreciate that brand of comedy very much because it suggests that when it comes to white women, black men have no standards, but every other man does. Now, even though I don't appreciate that kind of comedy, was I sitting around trying to throw Amy Schumer off television? Or was I writing to Comedy Central or protesting saying that Lisa Lampanelli needs to go or we need to cancel her? No, of course not. I feel as though, although it's disagreeable, that's her right as a comedian to engage in her routine. And I was able to detect that delineation between disagreeable and what is otherwise something that is truly offensive.
Mm-hmm.
But these day and age, they all mean the same thing, and I think comedy has been caught up in the wake of that. And so, yeah, even though I do think it's a bit strange that he said that in Saudi Arabia, a place that engages, a place that certainly engages in its own form of censorship. I can understand why he made those comments there, because the form of censorship that attempted to censor him here is a form of censorship that is actually welcomed in that side, in that part of the world. So I understand why he felt free enough to say it there. Otherwise, it's kind of weird because, yeah, Saudi Arabia has its own issues. I feel you on what you're saying about Saudi Arabia taking over, because they are. And yeah, comedy's under attack. But I don't know if the genie can be put back in the bottle. I think that we are at the point, you said, we're not at the point yet where free speech is really being threatened in terms of, you know, cops and the government coming around you up and throw you in a gulag because you made a bad joke or said something offensive. No, we're not there yet. But are we at the point where your livelihood can be put at risk because you say something wrong? Yes. And are we at the point where comedy is at risk because of everything that I've just outlined? Yes, we are there, and that I think is bad enough as it is.
Yeah, hey, well said, bro. And the Lampanelli stuff. I mean, I'm with you on that. Lampanelli was a bit of a hack, if you ask me. Um, that was her only angle, and that's what limited her game, in my opinion. And Amy Schumer, I mean, I wasn't offended by her Negro jokes. I was offended by all of her jokes because she hasn't said one thing that even made me chuckle. At least Lampanelli would make me chuckle.
I think she had a very brief,
Schumer?
Yeah, Schumer
Yeah,
had a pretty brief like time in the spotlight as like a go-to stand-up comedian. It was never her thing because she is a hack, or at least she was.
No, she will always remain one. And but my thing is, and I agree with you on comedy, and I feel like comedians have been the loudest when it comes to this, social justice way of looking at things. But I play a little bit of devil's advocate here. I'm not 100% against certain things, like you shouldn't make fun of that. Yeah, for instance, man, growing up, we just watching this back in the days with a cable box, got 32 channels. And so we just flicking through, we'll just be watching stuff, and me and the fam, man, and we're just making fun of everybody, bro. Like everybody's getting it. Just making fun of them, no matter what it is. Then I got older, I got outside of the house, I started, making friends in school and other things like that. And, and I'm sitting there going, for certain things, I'm like, you know what? I don't think you can't make fun of people. And, but in the, confines of my own house, everything was all good because we all knew it was a joke. But, I couldn't take that show on the road, is what I'm trying to get at initially. And then, the older I got, the more I understood the sensitivities of life and certain things like that. And honestly, if you're a comedian and you're getting paid all of this money, for instance, making fun of the disabled, what are you doing? Are you in elementary school? Because that's not funny. If you have somebody like that in your family or, whatever, whoop-de-whoop, there's nothing to make fun of on that. I mean, this guy's literally, is missing a chromosome, for instance. So there's nothing funny about that. So, as I got older, and some of those jokes where I am watching older things and they are making fun of, let's say the disabled. And I'm like, hey man, that's I personally fast forward through it or whatever, because there's funnier things in the world. And when it came to race jokes, or for instance, race jokes or sexist jokes, the sexist jokes are so funny though. But but let's say even like the racial stuff or whatever, I always took that as like, especially as I got older, as low hanging fruit. You have to make a joke about a stereotype. Hey, when black people go to the store, they walk like this. When a white man go to the store, he goes like this. Ooh, hey, I have a coupon for 2 less paper towels. And it's like, where's the joke there? You know what I'm saying? So comedians are mainly mad about that. You really can't do that. And unless you want to get into the alternative lifestyle jokes or whatever, it's like, okay, so you got limited over here, you got limited over there, fine. If you are really a master of your craft, if you really are a Picasso or Basquiat, then you would have the ability to craft up new jokes that don't have to peer into that, because there's so much, comedy is so much more than talking about stereotypes of communities. It's so much more. And the brilliance of the Chappelle show is that it was self-deprecating, the racial stuff that he would do. But in other contexts, it would also highlight the hypocrisy or the ignorance of other groups of people, how they view his community of people. So it was a brilliance of taking some of those stereotypes or whatever to kind of make fun, on the surface. But if you looked a little bit deeper, it's talking about a social ramifications or something similar to what the Boondocks was doing. And so if you want to do it like that, I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with it. So it has to be layered comedy. It can't be slapstick, fall over a chair, ha ha, race, sexism, because that's not going to fly nowadays. And honestly, if you're an artist, that's lazy. So get a little bit deeper, make different types of jokes, because there's plenty of things to talk about outside of those things. So that will also be my argument towards the comedy community. But unfortunately, man, comedy as a whole right now, much like music and other forms of entertainment, has become pretty much washed down and watered down. And it's due to the lack of creativity. So there's great ways to talk about anything in life, and a real good comedian will be able to navigate those terrains. Not to say that so all social justice is righteous or on the right path. I do think it is becoming somewhat invasive, but somewhat invasive. But at the same token, it is what it is. Everybody has to conform. HR rules have changed over the last decade, so everybody has to adjust. And as a comedian, instead of crying foul, get better at your craft, because they haven't cornered the market on everything. So there's plenty of things to talk about. So get off the low hanging fruit from 2 decades and 3 decades ago, and get busy with the pen. So that will also be my take towards the comedians and that community.
No, I get that, but the great comedians don't do that, and they're still having their work be marginalized because even their layered comedy is being interpreted as offensive in certain capacities. So I think that's what people like Chappelle are railing against is, Chappelle has, I would say, um, you know, made a name for himself up to this point as somebody whose comedy is the opposite of hinging on low hanging fruit. I think he has enough of a body of work which suggests that he has perfected the ability to deliver layered comedy that's both entertaining and also has some sort of a message behind it that is up to the audience to interpret. And for him to attempt to do that while also trying to call out the manner in which some of his comedy is at times being marginalized given the subject matter does bear listening to at the very least. And I do hear what you're saying. I agree. I'm never considering the bad. Like whenever I talk about stuff like this, I'm never even like I don't even think about bad comedians or people who are bad at work. I'm only talking about the people who are good at their job. The people who are bad at their job, as far as I'm concerned, aren't even considered in this particular equation. So yeah, I get that. I just think at the end of the day, even the good stuff, even the more introspective things in certain contexts are being perceived as, whatever you want to call it, offensive or derogatory or, you know, antiquated. And so, like I said before, I believe that there is a difference between disagreeable and like wrong slash offensive. And I think that those lines are being increasingly blurred. And there was one more thing that I wanted to say. I think I lost it though. Um, I lost it. I might get it back, but I lost it. But either way, this is what I was gonna say. And even if it's bad, my point with this though, even if it is bad comedy, like let the ecosystem of the art form determine whether somebody is unworthy of earning a livelihood within that space. I don't like the notion that, like, even if you're bad at your job, right? A person shouldn't be declared radioactive, for example, just because they aren't good at being comedians or may, engage in some of the stuff that you talked about when it comes to like depending on low hanging fruit or some of the things that are right there for the picking that otherwise make you look like a hack. Even that to me shouldn't mean that you kind of go away and crawl away and hide because the world has determined that um, you're worth having your character disparaged. I kind of feel like the art form itself should determine whether you have a place in it. And if it determines that you're not good enough because you're bad at your job, then at that point, okay, comedy isn't for this person. But there's a difference between that and outright cancellation because we've determined that this person is a bad human. So I do think that we need to be careful because some of it does traverse down that terrain as well. And I do think that we need to dial some of that stuff back. But otherwise, I just kind of feel like even layered comedy in certain respects is being looked at with a microscope. And a lot of people are determining that no matter how thought provoking it might be, it's still offensive. And I think the better comedians are a bit perturbed about stuff like that.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair because even some of the Chappelle stuff that he did, in his, I don't know if that was his latest Netflix or whatever thing it was, and he had people all up in arms because they only took the surface level of the joke, and even the back end, but even the back end of the joke kind of still stings them because it's kind of what their ideology is about. So, but yeah, he still layers his stuff, but I still think that there's so much more room to do social commentary where you don't have to touch any of those hot topics, and it can still get to the people. And I just think that one lane of going up that alley, they clearly blocked it.
For sure.
They've clearly blocked it. But the good thing about art is, there's 360 degrees you can tackle something. And the better ones find a new avenue and exploit that. So, but point well taken, man. The genre is definitely under attack, and I just would tell the artist to adapt.
I haven't seen an artist that has adapted successfully yet. I'm waiting on it.
Yeah.
Comedy is another one of those things for me, bro. Comedy is in the comedy to me is in the same bucket as music. To a certain extent, sports, mainstream television, where it has over time gotten objectively worse by trying to adhere to every new and progressive social standard. So I'm waiting for the comedian who is able to be just as thought provoking and good at what they do while also adhering to the thousands of rules that they have to adhere to all at the same time. I haven't really seen it yet. And I try, they try to throw these newer, younger comedians at me. I give them a shot. Not really funny.
It ain't easy, man. Weekly I try to freestyle jokes. And as I'm trying to riff, I'm like, hey, man, you can't say that. I can't say that. Oh, man, so many landmines. But hey, man, you got to love it, baby.
Hey, shouts out to Chappelle. Chappelle is one of the few celebrity people who will actually provide me with some intrinsic value from time to time. It's a very, very short list. He might be one of two, and I don't even know who the other person is. But he's like the only person these days who is like, oh, that's actually somebody I might listen to from time to time. Everybody else is just whatever.
Hey, shout out to Dave, man. Shout out to Dave.
And we move on to Ace Hood. Ace Hood, who is from around our way, Miami, Florida guy. I would say his peak was like in the mid and late 2000s musically. Would you say that that's fair?
Yeah,
mid to late 2000s. He was routinely featured on songs on DJ Khaled's compilation albums, and had guest features on there with people like Rick Ross and Lil Wayne and Trey Songz and whatnot. He was recently on Cam Newton's, one of Cam Newton's shows. I think Cam Newton has two shows. He has the sports show, and then he has the Club Shay Shay type show. The show where the show where he brought on that despot, the charlatan,
Oh, geez.
Cheyenne Bryant.
Yes. Who can
Yeah.
forget that?
So Ace Hood was on Cam Newton's version of that kind of show that he has, and they got onto the subject of marriage and relationships. And so Ace Hood kind of waxed poetically about his approach to marriage and how he's never really stepped out of the boundaries of his marriage because he's always been able to control, urges, and he never really felt the need to do so because he's always been committed. So let's listen to Ace Hood talk about his approach to marriage and then give our thoughts about what he had to say.
Decide to say that now, I don't want to indulge in that. So in terms of being in a marriage, for me, like I told myself, I'm gonna take that serious. I don't play with marriage. I'm not that type of guy. I don't play with, you know what I'm saying? I'm very intentional when I do something, dog. You feel me? So I'm like, all right, if we're gonna get married, we're gonna do this, we locking in. So that's how I hold out on the temptation, bro. I respect mine no matter where I go. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so obviously before my wife came into my life, I was the boy. I've had my fair share of women doing whatever I want, boom, boom, having fun, da da da, whatever. I learned very earlier on, bro, like that I had the power in that. So I was never the type of man that just wanted to share myself with a bunch of women. I always felt like I was a man of value, and I always seen that once you connect with somebody on that intimate level like that, it changes the circumstances of things. And that didn't always work out well for me. So a part of my change and evolution was for me realizing that that's a part of my power. You know what I'm saying? And I can't just get that out to bomb, 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 bomb. I can't just get that out to anybody. And this is coming in the game because I always felt like what made me step out of the game with that, of just knowing of like, bro, they gonna always be there. A lot of things in my life I call forth on. I pray about it and I call it forth. So it's not like just a shock. You know what I mean? So I started positioning myself even when I was with the mother of my children and me and her just, you know what I mean? I'm pulling up at a house 3, 4 a.m. in the morning, seeing my kids sleep. That dynamic wasn't healthy for me, dog. To that in terms of recognizing the power that I have by retaining, you see what I'm saying? By keeping that. You feel me? Because now I got to say so in the power to be able to say, yes, I want to do it. And not you just shake, shake, shake in my face. And then now I feel like, now I'm turned up. It's like, nah, I got the power to decide, like to see that and say that it's beautiful and to decide to say that now I don't want to indulge in that. So in terms of being in a marriage, for me, like I told myself, I'm going to take that serious. I don't play with marriage. I'm not that type of guy. I don't play with, you know what I'm saying? I'm very intentional when I do something, dog. You feel me? So I'm like, all right, if we're going to get married, we're going to do this, we locking in. So that's how I hold out on the temptation, bro. I respect mine no matter where I go. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
No free ads.
Yeah, no free ads,
Star.
man. Screw you guys. Hate that damn website, man. But yeah, so what did you think about his what he had to say?
Very well said. Very well said. Ace is as you can see in that clip there, very, he's a level-headed dude. He knows what's up. And he never was really, even though he was definitely had industry ties. If you followed his IG page back in the day, I used to, and he was just straight up and down. Yeah, he was on Khaled tapes and stuff like that, but he was still like a regular person, if you will. He did his industry stuff. He dibbled and dabbled, but overall, he didn't come off like an industry man. Felt like it was more of a, hey, this is my job. I got to look the part. So with that stuff being said, and all due respect to his situation here, his old lady, I used to follow her too. And I used to, she knows what's up. Like, she's no knucklehead. So she knows what's going on out here in the world. And so, so I'm sitting there following her because, to me, this is the ticket. I'm following that. And then now I'm seeing Ace Hood all up in the pictures. I'm like, hey, man, get this guy out of here. All right. And then, but then, I would see certain things that he would post or whatever. And he's no knucklehead either. Like, he knows what's going on out here. Like, he's no fool. And so when they got together, I thought it was more of a IG type of thing, whatever, whoop-de-whoop, but they were staying together. And so when you shared me this clip, you know, and I was like, oh, well, who's this old lady? Oh, it's the same girl. Yeah, he's been with her, man. You know, so, you know, they gotta, to me, it's, they have, for where he's at, for who he is, somebody that people know, you know, somewhat of an industry man. He has himself more of a traditional type of situation at the crib, even though they don't live a traditional life. They still on TV, or they still doing things, you know. So, but their dynamics, I would say it comes from a place where he knows who he is as a person, and he knows what he has to do, you know, as a man in the situation. And from what I knew about her before all of this stuff, is that she knows what it is to be a woman and do the woman type thing in a situation. So I feel as though that, you know, they made it work. They made it work, and it's a strong, solid situation. And I'm glad that he's in that space and can confidently say that. Because and again, all due respect, man. All right, but you know what I'm saying, his old lady, man, she's put together, and she has a, as far as I'm concerned, a good mindset. So why would he jeopardize that? You know, if a man in his right mind, why would he jeopardize that by being a goofball? But that's a solid situation.
By not being in your right mind, you said it.
Yeah. And so, but he is, you know, so I'm glad that he's doing that, because it sounds like he got himself a solid, stable situation. And you can just hear it in his response, because there was nothing there that he had to prep for. You know, he didn't say, okay, Cam's going to ask me this and I'm going to go on this soliloquy. It's like, nah, man, this is how he feels, because this is how he lives. And I'm happy for him for that. So shout out to Ace Hood, man. I agree with this mindset. You know, I talk often on here about people, you know, having alternative ways of doing relationships. All right. But then there's some people that's actually built and cut for that actual monogamous life. And it sounds like him and his old lady got that going on. And I have no issues with that at all. But what are your thoughts, man, on Ace Hood saying that, hey, man, I'm no cheater, man. I'm not out here playing the field. I got a family and a wife at home, and I'm not jeopardizing that. What are your thoughts, bro?
I like very much what he had to say, not necessarily because it's championing marriage or monogamy, but because it's championing um, control and not allowing oneself to be controlled. Sometimes on this channel, when we cover topics like this, I'll bring up one of the core principles that I live by, which is a man not being a slave to vagina, which in turn will also cause me to call out other men who I perceive to be slaves for vagina. And it's part of an overarching, ongoing conversation about my belief in the importance of men not being slaves to vagina. Because when you are a slave to vagina, I think you willfully are ceding way too much power to not only women, but to the rest of the world, based off of the premise of the acquisition of sex. I think that when you are someone who is what I call a slave to vagina, you're controlled by sex. And when you're controlled by sex, you're easily controlled by anything or anyone that's offering you even the illusion of it. Because even when we get on here and we talk about stuff like OF all the time, a lot of these guys who are forking over thousands of dollars per year subscribing to these channels, they're not even actually getting the benefit of physical contact. And they're still paying all this money because these guys are even being controlled by the illusion of sex,
which is ridiculous.
which is insane. That's insane, because that not only, like, it's bad enough to be controlled by sex in and of itself, but to be controlled by the illusion of sex and aperture and avatar of sex, to me, is something that I will never be able to wrap my head around. I don't understand it. It is incomprehensible to me. So I think a man's position in the world, in my opinion, has been ceded to corporations, advertisers, entities, and women on the basis of the acquisition of sex. That's what I believe. And I think a lot of men today have ceded a lot of their rightful authority in the world on the basis of the acquisition of sex. And that is not to suggest that sex isn't something that you shouldn't pursue, that it isn't something that's important, that it isn't the enjoyable, fun experience that we all know it to be. But there is a difference between indulging in that reasonably and completely ceding all of your authority in the world on the basis of it. Those are two completely different notions. And a lot of guys today are being controlled actively, either by women or by social media and the internet on the basis of sex. And when you're easily controlled, you can't actually contribute to the world in any meaningful way, nor can you actually reach the point in which you have actualized and you're able to give something to the world that you're meant to give to because you're too preoccupied with the pursuit of sex. So the reason why I appreciate his comments is because he was talking about maintaining the self-control to, even though he's in the presence of this and in the presence of various temptations, there's a point to which it can't control him to start to act in kind in ways that are otherwise undesirable.
That's
And
right.
I feel like that is removed from, like, to me, you can do it conventionally, because I agree with you. I think there's multiple ways to skin a cat when it comes to relationships nowadays, but I think the importance is honesty. And what I think is lost is honesty. So if you're a guy, or if you're a man or a woman and you want to do things alternatively, where you have a polyamorous thing going on, or you know that from time to time you're going to want to explore other options, but you also don't want to forsake whatever it is that you do have at home, you have to disclose that to whoever you're dealing with so that they can make an informed decision. That's the only thing that I've ever said. I'm not here to tell people to be monogamous, nor am I here to tell people to not be monogamous. What I am suggesting is people should be honest. If you're for the streets, let people know you're for the streets. And that's if you're a man or a woman. So to me, it doesn't matter whether you're doing things the conventional way, being monogamous, or doing things the non-monogamous way, where you're maintaining multiple options and keeping things open and casual. That to me is irrelevant. That to me is irrelevant. What is relevant is, particularly for a man, having the ability to control, as you like to say, keep it in the pants. Like, keep it in the pants doesn't mean don't do it. It just
Right.
means don't have it means don't completely lack in self-control.
Correct.
To where any woman or anybody or anything can come your way, dangle a little carrot in front of you, and at that point you'll spend whatever,
Go.
do whatever, go wherever, give whatever, and all you're getting in return is that. When you're doing that, to me, you're ceding your power, and that to me is not something that a man should be doing. And so, to his credit, he is someone who, no matter how, however he may have gotten to the point in which he does have that control over himself, I think that is something that is sorely lacking for the most part with today's current man, in my opinion. The ones who are 10 toes down and are able to sort of be on their square and not let it get them off the beaten path, kudos to these guys. But as we have seen, there are far more occurrences out here of these guys who are what I call slaves to vagina. At a moment's notice, if that carrot is dangled in front of them, it becomes, how much do I have to spend? Where do I need to go? What do I need to do? What do I need to give? You can have it all, so long as I get a bite out of this carrot. And that to me is a disadvantageous position for any man to be in, but it is a position nonetheless that a lot of men find themselves in.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the mindset to be disciplined in a field that he's in, where you can pretty much have a field day. It's not something that's very common. And honestly, often you don't hear rappers even talk about it. Even the rappers out there that are married and about their wives, outside of Chance the Rapper, you don't really hear you don't really hear them talk about their situation or their philosophies on their marriage
Until the divorce comes.
of course.
Yeah.
And irreconcilable differences, I'm sure. right? And so, and that's why I was making that point earlier, because I was following Ace Hood, on Instagram, not because it's Ace Hood, it's because he wasn't a knucklehead, and so you could tell by some of the things that he would repost, some things he would say. So he was in a space to where, mentally, that even with all of these bullets flying around, there was this situation of, I want to be out of the game, like, him out here dating or DMing with intention, not just, for the Friday night splack off. And and able to be able to have that balance in his position. Yeah, man, that is unfortunately, it's not the norm, I would say, and it's worth commending, honestly. But for doing your job, I take care of my kids,
Right.
good for you. But it's still a situation where there's not too many people out here doing that, so you got to applaud the people that are, And so, but yeah, that's the right mindset. That's the right mentality to have. But even being so, let me also say this. It helps to have options. Okay. It helps to have options. It helps to know that you've got air quote money in the bank just in case things don't go right. He's not doing this through desperation. He's doing it through choice, which is also a great position to be in. So, and what I mean by he's got options and stuff like that, like, yeah, man, God forbid I'm not speaking this on him, but if somebody that's in a similar situation and it goes left, for whatever reason, those women, like he said, that will always be there, they're still going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a poverty mindset when it comes to I can walk out the door and get some if I want it, which helps. When people are in a state of desperation, for instance, whether it's financially or insecurity wise or whatever like that, they exercise that in their day-to-day behavior. You got to be a solid person in order to pull off stuff like this and say the things that he said. So I would say it's a concert of things that has men in a space where they become slaves to vagina. And it's not just one thing you could put your finger on. It's how that person was raised. It's what they, came up seeing in the house. It's the programming and the conditioning that they got over the years. The positive and negative reinforcements for actually shooting your shot when you were in school. And, there's a whole bunch of stuff that adds up over time to where these guys become, the loners that they are nowadays, or the guys that pay for it nowadays. It's a myriad and a concert of things. So for some of those men, for instance, that are living like that, and they do have options, well, they're already in a mindset where, they'll pay for it. So they'll just start paying for the options like you see these celebrity dudes do now. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of this comes on upbringing and knowing who you are. And Ace Hood's though, man. So he came up, I'm sure, in a household that had values. And he probably wanted to have those values his whole life, even though he was a rapper. And so, it's things that add up to this. So all that stuff to say is that the population is what it is right now, and the OF subscriptions and all of those things are going through the roof, is because a lot of people are not being raised on values. The same thing that you like to talk about as far as like, people don't have values and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, these people that we're running into don't have them, and they were taught not to, or, through either neglect or whatever. And so it's a sad state of affairs, but not everybody has a household that cultivates value. And so he seems to be in a position that he has those, and he's exercised them. And yeah, man, he's living his dream. And there's no hate on that, man. But the larger systemic issue is more of an indictment towards what American culture is more than the actual individual person per se, you know, because we've gotten into this mess due to um, people being funneled into this through the various dopamine things that are being sold to them on a daily basis. So in order to break that, you need somebody with you while you're watching the TV, while you're playing a video game, while you're doing whatever, to hold your hand and say that, but that's not reality. And a lot of people didn't have that. So, but yeah, man, fair points. But those guys out there that's paying for OFs, telling them not to. This was a problem that started when they were in elementary school.
Yeah, sure. I've often said discipline is a skill.
Mhm.
It's like you, you know, having respect for people isn't an intrinsic trait. Having consideration for people isn't an intrinsic trait. Being mannerable, these are not intrinsic traits. I think that these are value sets that are learned through teaching. I think discipline is another one of those things. Good decision making is another one. All of these things to me are humanistic skills. Emphasis on the word skill because they have to be taught. You don't just naturally acquire them by birthright.
Mhm.
Discipline goes hand in hand with not being controlled by sex because you have to literally be taught the skill of discipline in order to maintain the discipline necessary to not allow sex to control your behavior. And the lack of discipline, to your point, does come from the environment that you are raised in, the immediate environment, which does not prioritize the importance of instilling the value of discipline to you. So when you actually grow and mature into adulthood devoid of that skill, it's going to manifest itself in various ways, such as being willing to spend a lot of money to be patronized on OnlyFans. So I do understand that. And I don't disagree with you totally, but I do think it's become far more pervasive than the simple explanation of a lack of values. I think the culture of a lack of discipline has
Mhm.
become so pronounced, particularly in this country,
Mhm.
that even if you're raised in an environment in
Mhm.
which you are given the opportunity by caregivers to learn the skill of discipline,
Mhm.
you can still go left if
Yes.
you are exposed to far too much content and conditioning, and as you like to call it, social engineering and mind control,
Mhm.
which puts you in a spot where you throw all of that stuff that you learn by the wayside.
Yes.
And that to me is the dangerous part, because we're at a point now where even if you are coming up in an environment which allows for you to gain these very valuable humanistic skills, something can still happen, uh along the way at some point in that delicate process that causes you to be out here looking like an idiot, being Adrian Bronner or being Safari or being or it ain't just celebrity guys, it's just everyday regular
It's
people.
everyday
it,
dudes,
it, it
man.
is it's everyday dudes who don't
Uh,
know how to exercise that level of discipline and not allow their behaviors to be controlled by sex. And
yeah.
mind you, sex isn't the only force that can control a man's behavior. There's other things that can control a man's behavior. I think sex is one of the ones that's the most pervasive according to today's culture, but
Mhm.
it's not the only one. And all of these things don't have to control your behavior if you're fortunate enough to fully develop those skills of discipline. And unfortunately, nowadays, um, a lot of us don't have the opportunity to fully develop those skills. And it isn't because we're not being given enough runway to develop them in our immediate environments. But when we're going off to school or hanging out in our various social circles or spending 8 to 10 hours a day on these damn phones, a lot of those things we're powerless against. And those things can also heavily influence one's inability to develop skills of discipline. So when you are able to recognize someone who does live a disciplined existence, And again, discipline doesn't mean you don't do anything and
Right.
that you stay shelled up and you're not living. It
Right.
just means you have the ability to not allow worldly influences to control your behavior.
Exactly.
And so
Yes.
whenever you are able to recognize people who maintain the wherewithal to not allow worldly influences to control their behavior, it's something worth pointing out because it is a skill, a trait, whatever you want to call it, that unfortunately these days is sorely lacking. So, I commend him for talking that way because he comes off to me as an individual who I'm sure he has his vices, I'm sure he has his indulgences, but he comes off as somebody who is disciplined enough to not allow worldly influences to control his behavior. And there's far too many men who are not in position to say the same thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, man. And I agree with that. And my last point is that what the part where we're talking about, at least for me, where I was mentioning the fact that the lack of values, and it's in that realm of lack of culture, because the culture in America is commercialization and consumerism. And if that's what your culture is, buying the latest shoes or having the whatever, you're a part of that ritual in that society. And what people need is rituals, or like your book likes to talk, a set of habits. And if you don't have those rituals for yourself, then it makes it harder. Then you're going up against you literally have zero defense when it comes to the world.
Yeah.
But if you have those regimented rituals that you do for yourself, nothing spooky here. I'm talking about literally like getting up and taking a urination first thing in the morning, whether you know it or not. That is a ritual. Okay, because you don't have to do that first. Your body may tell you have to, but you don't have to do that. But you do that because this is what I do, and that's a ritual that you do. But another ritual that you do is when you first thing you wake up, probably some people out here, is you get on your phone and start doom scrolling. Okay, that's a ritual, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
And part of what this society has done is it has given Americans and in the world, in many cases, a set of rituals that they have to follow. And these people are following along the ritualistic patterns of commercialization and consumerism. So then their everyday actions are reflections of that. Relationships become transactional. Everything is transactional at this point. Why is that? Well, because everybody has bought into the culture of America. So people like to say they don't have one. It does. It's buy and consume. And so the end results of that, all right, the byproduct of that is what we're now seeing happening to the state of relationships, the state of dating, and the state of men when it comes to these types of things, because they fall down these various holes that were built and constructed by the very same system that told you had to get online and start watching women shake their tail feathers. So so to have all of those things swirling around you at all times, okay, having financial status resources like Ace Hood has, so where he can indulge if he wants to, and choosing not to is something, as we've been mentioning, that he does have a set of values and disciplines and things like that. And certain disciplines are a ritual. Getting up and going to the gym at this time of day. Why? Because if I'm not going in the gym, what the hell would I be doing? And it's a lot of things that come with that type of decision making. So all in all, I'm with you, bro. But this is not a situation where, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but just for the conversation, it's not a situation of saying, oh, be disciplined to be disciplined. No, you have to be disciplined to defend yourself against all the flying influences that's going around you 24/7. And if you don't have a regimented way that you handle the worldliness, then you will become part of the world. And last I checked, you never really want to be a part of that. So points well taken, man. And I'll double down on it, man. I'm happy for the dude for having what he wants and moving accordingly. I say that.
Yeah, I remember there's a classic acceptance speech that's oftentimes it's often used for like motivational speaking. It's like used for motivational content. Like a lot of companies will use it. It's like I think he's a Marine or a member or in the Navy or something, and he's giving an acceptance speech and he's talking about having healthy rituals, and the importance of how they help keep you grounded and focused. And so he mentions simple things like, wake up every morning and make up your bed, for example.
Yes.
I forget the name of the video, but it's a very famous, I'm pretty sure a lot of people might recognize it if they see this. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I think he's a Marine or he's a member of the armed forces. I forget whether he's a Marine or in the Navy or the Army, but he's giving an acceptance speech at a university and he's talking about the importance of that. And he's like, hey, listen, man, every day you get up and you make up your bed. Never renege on that. It's important. Always maintain these healthy habits and rituals. And he goes down the list talking some other things. But yeah, a lot of people, I don't know what it's like to not live a life or an existence built on routine. So I try not to judge people who don't come from that frame of reference because my life is heavily predicated on habits and routines and rituals. So I don't know what it's like to not live that way, but I do know that a lot of people don't live that way, and it's directly correlated to it is, in my opinion, directly correlated to a lot of the madness that's going on out here.
Yeah, well said, brother. Well said, man. I need to be a little bit more regimented myself. But yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Hey, shout out to Ace Hood, man.
Good, hey, man. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of like a lack of regimen or routine or whatever you want to call it, Liz Cambridge, formerly of the WNBA, but she since left the WNBA to focus on mental health. She was more talked about for what she did off the court than what she was doing on the court, which is her OnlyFans. So Liz Cambridge was, I don't want to say she was on the cutting edge of, women in the spotlight going to OnlyFans, but she was a part of the early wave. I would say that in terms of like celebrity, or at the very least celebrity adjacent women who, in addition to their day jobs, quote unquote, were also doing OnlyFans. And so somebody caught up with Liz Cambridge, who talked about how WNBA salaries are, are pale in comparison to the money that you can make doing things like OnlyFans, and how cool it is that more and more women these days are embracing whatever and going to OnlyFans and these various other outlets to, continue to bring the money coming in. So this says Liz Cambridge criticizes WNBA salaries when asked if she makes more from OnlyFans than playing ball. Former WNBA star Liz Cambridge, who currently plays for the Sichuan Yuanda of the Women's Chinese Basketball Association, has offered some advice for WNBA stars struggling with their salaries. Earlier this year, Cambridge started an OnlyFans account, and in an interview with TMZ, she was asked about her experience with the adult content platform. When asked if it's true that she's made more on OnlyFans than she made in her entire WNBA career, she laughed. Asked if she thinks her experience with OnlyFans will encourage other women in basketball to seek other revenue streams, she said that they just get it how they can. So I'm going to skip through all of the quotes. In 2022, the four-time WNBA star announced that she would be stepping away from the WNBA for the time being to focus on healing and personal growth. Per the Express Tribune, she said earlier this year that she made $1.5 million in less than a year on OnlyFans. Several WNBA players have sought to supplement their income from playing basketball in the league, with Cameron Brink recently joining Unrivaled for a reported six-figure income. Meanwhile, Rihanna's Fenty Beauty announced that it'll be offering beauty and skincare contracts to WNBA players. So here is Liz Cambridge talking about WNBA players and whatnot, hopping on the OnlyFans to make money.
And tell me if this is true, that you made more with that new OnlyFans account.
It's not new.
Than your whole WNBA career.
Yeah.
Is that fact?
You know, the WNBA salary is not that hard to make more money doing anything.
No, that's real. But like, how does that feel? Like in hindsight?
In hindsight,
Because you're such a successful player
I feel
too.
like women gotta make more money playing the sport they love.
Do you think that like this, like your experience will like draw people into making money other ways like that?
I think everyone's just gotta get it how they can.
Well, look at I like the mink coat.
As I'm standing,
you know, as you're standing here in a mink coat with the diamond tees, like obviously it was a smart move. So
Bugs Bunny, baby.
hey, you gotta get the carrots, baby. No, so do you have any wisdom to WNBA players who would be like follow your footsteps, maybe?
Just be you. Stick to your personality. You know, I feel like back in the day, there wasn't like an opportunity or a space for women to be like who they are, but now I feel like women are being more girly or like earning their sexuality more, and it's fun. And you know, even like the stud buds, like seeing those girls pop off, like I love T so much, like that's going global. Like I'm sitting with Diplo Wesley in Ibiza in London. We're laughing about it, you know. So he loves them. But it's just dope to see, like, you know, it getting more popular and crossing. Like, Wesley doesn't know any other girls to name at the WNBA, and he's talking to me about Courtney and T. Like, no, that's really cool.
Being more comfortable with who they are, and it's becoming more popular.
Wow.
So,
jeez.
So yeah, man, there's Liz Cambridge there, you know, caping for all of the, you know, WNBA players, as well as I would say that's a facsimile for women at large, I would say, you know, who are embracing this, you know, alternative ways of making money and doing things like OnlyFans to supplement the income. So what do you make of those comments coming from her?
I mean, I'm not surprised, you know, because this was circling around the internet when she first created that page and first made that announcement about how much more money she was making doing OF than playing basketball. So I'm not surprised here that, you know, she's doubling and tripling down on that, because that's what she about. She on that. And, you know, the dangerous rhetoric here when it comes to, you know, finding their sexuality and it's fun.
Correct. Yeah. Or don't forget, she also said being who they are, or embracing
being who you are, you know, just embracing all of you and just popping your thought pocket, because that's how you do that, right? So the dangerous rhetoric there, definitely not a fan of that. Okay. Because that is extremely misleading. You know, just tapping in from the previous conversation, you know, due to these lack of disciplines that are going on right now, it makes people open and susceptible to, when they do find their sexuality, it's the extreme version of it, you know. And you know, and to touch on discipline right quick, you know, being a football person, you know, the service academies, they beat a lot of teams that they shouldn't beat because they play a disciplined, uniform type of football. And if you're not disciplined, you're going to lose against Army, against Navy, against Air Force. And their whole offense, their whole way that they go about making sure that they have a competitive advantage is just knowing that our rigid way of doing things, fundamentally sound, will beat all of this goofy stuff that's going on out there. So in turn, being a disciplined person makes you tough to beat, if you will. And when she's sitting here talking about, you know, finding your sexuality and, you know, embracing who you are, when people don't have a regimented way about their life and, you know, set goals and stuff like that, then they are undisciplined, and they're susceptible to any type of convincing that this is what your sexuality is. And honestly, it changes every year, every month of whatever you're supposed to be into sexually or whatever. And so if you don't have any defenses up, then you're likely to get beat. And then these dangerous rhetorics float around in your brain. And then because everybody has that innate thing in them to be either one way or another when it comes to a myriad of things. And in this case, sexuality. So a lot of these girls that do come up, herself included, clearly didn't have a regimented system or a culture around them that would prevent them from thinking that giving their box away actually increases their value. Thinking that selling their bodies for financial gain or whatever is something that should be idolized. And so all in all, I think that much like in the last conversation, I think these two tie in very well. And I think that this Cambridge young lady, Cambridge or whatever her name is, she's the wrong person to run up on and ask about stuff like this, because she will be an advocate for it. And but of course, TMZ is going to think that this is somewhat of a story, and spread more toxicity on the internet. I've got more to say about this, but I'll let you go ahead and take a swing. What are your thoughts on Miss Liz Cambridge saying that, hey man, if you want to go on OF and do your thing, I'm not here to stop you because, well, you can make a lot of money doing it. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, of course, you know how I feel about this. I think she's an agent of chaos. She represents what I talk about when I talk about the aggressive normalization and mainstreaming of sex work. This is what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. It's this kind of it's these kinds of talking points when you say things like, and again, I'm not giving her credit for being cognizant of this. She just kind of sounds like she's just trying to make money and do whatever. So I don't think she realizes what she's saying when she says it, but like, yeah. She doesn't realize what she is saying when she says it. But when you say things like women embracing who they are or embracing their sexuality, you know what I'm saying, or becoming more comfortable with that kind of stuff, essentially you're equating all of those various baseline themes to sex working. Yeah. That's what you're doing, because you're saying to have a greater understanding of all of these things is tantamount to joining OnlyFans. So when you become a sex worker, it's indicative of you embracing who you are and your sexuality and all of that kind of stuff. That to me is a form of dangerous rhetoric for sure. Yeah. Now, people might not glean it that way consciously, but trust me, people are gleaning it that way subconsciously. Mm-hmm. It's those kinds of talking points that permeates everyday conversation and understanding, and creates an environment in which not just celebrity women, but just women in general will decide that there's really no moral hang-up tied to making the leap to do this. It's these kinds of talking points that make that kind of decision easier, because it's like, okay, over time, I am to believe that if I were to do this, I'm actually embracing who I am truly. So what's the harm in it? So, of course, I think it's dangerous rhetoric and I don't agree with it. But I will also say, to be consistent with how I have spoken about this OnlyFans stuff on the channel in previous times, I really don't blame the women per se. I feel like women are just capitalizing off of an opportunity that is being presented to them because of the way that the world is currently set up. I don't really blame them. They're capitalizing off the market, but they didn't create it. I mostly hold responsible the individuals who are creating the marketplace and allowing it to persist, which is mostly men. Men are mostly the consumers of Liz Cambridge, as well as everybody else's OnlyFans. They're the ones who are spending the money. They're the ones who are opening up the floodgates for her and individuals like her to occupy these various spaces to make this money. If you don't create the market, then the agents of the market can't come in and make the money. It's very simple. So I don't really blame them per se. I blame the men and the modern sexual marketplace for persisting. Having said that, the more I hear people talk like this, and this takes us back to a topic that we discussed last week. The more that I hear people talk like this, the more I will continue to roll my eyes at these ongoing conversations over and over again, speaking to the detrimental aspect of male misogyny and the patriarchy. I just don't. I really want to not hear it as much anymore because I really feel like we cannot have, like, you can't have it both ways. Like, we are right now experiencing a Nexus event in real time in which we blame the patriarchy for all the problems in the world, and we blame male misogyny and the propensity of relegating women to being mere objects of men's sexual desire. We blame all of these things ad nauseum with a lot of what's wrong with the world, while at the same time seemingly being okay with allowing women to make money off of that very same power structure. I kind of feel like if you really want to see it go away, you have to be courageous enough in your convictions to not make money off of it. But if you elect to make money off of it, it kind of tells me you're kind of okay with it. And if we're all okay with it, why continue to have these conversations over and over again, talking about the problems inherent in it? So that's my whole thing with this, because clearly we see people benefiting off of this stuff. She's making $1.5 million, and you got these other women on here doing this, making their money, and they don't seem to have a problem with raking in the cash, but they'll also want to unmute and talk about how they're victimized by it. I don't understand how you can make that make sense, although I am sure people will do it. I am sure that there are a lot of people out there who can very smartly educate me on how you can have both things going on simultaneously, but maybe I'm just a dumb idiot who doesn't get it. I'm willing to accept that notion, although I doubt that that's the case. So I just want to see, I feel like we have to either go one direction or the other. Down the path in which we acknowledge that there are problems with the patriarchy, but there are also opportunities with it, or we go down the other path in which we denigrate the patriarchy and truly move away from it. But if we're going to move away from it, you can't have people, women, claiming that they are both victims of it, but also profiting off of it. Those are two counterintuitive notions. I don't understand how you can state one with the other, but a lot of people will do it anyway. So go figure.
And I've said this before when it comes to, this topic of, women selling their bodies and stuff like that. And, I mentioned it before, when a man is off of his square, he will do stuff. He will buy sex. When a woman is off of her square, she'll sell it. And there's a lot of people that are not on their square. There's some people that don't even know they have to be on a square.
Yeah.
Which speaks to what we were saying about her, is that she don't even know what she's talking about. She's on autopilot. When you're not on your square, somebody else is thinking for you. And when somebody else is thinking for you, somebody else is talking for you. So when she's sitting there saying whatever she's saying, and we saying she don't even know what she's saying, that means somebody else is telling her to talk like that, and she don't even know it. She busting it wide open on OF, and she don't even know why. Because she doesn't even know she has to be on a square. And the people that she's talking to are other people who are in that same boat that aren't even aware a square exists. Mm-hmm. And even if they've heard of the square, they don't see the importance of standing on that. So when you have that as the baseline of American culture, you're going to have the overwhelming majority of women selling sex and men buying it. was a big old controversy on TikTok last month, about this teacher who's calling herself Teacher Bay. And she's sitting around here, outfit of the week or outfit of the day, and you know what I'm saying, twirling her non-BBL or BBL and skin tight clothes. Bodycon is what they're calling it. And there's this whole debate online of this is not appropriate for teachers and stuff. Who you trying to look good for and all this. Yeah, but you're talking to a person that doesn't have a square.
Yeah.
So she's going to go do that. And it doesn't matter that it's happening at a school where there's children at. Boys or girls that don't need to be seeing that. She doesn't care. She doesn't see it. So she's just going to go do it. The clicks and views going viral and stuff like that. She thinks it's a joke. She got to teach these kids fractions. But she thinks it's a joke, and she's just looking at her page and seeing how many notifications she's got. This is where we're at. So yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying before from the last conversation, man. We're talking about dudes that are sit behind a keyboard that don't even know that they need to be on a square somewhere
or on their phone. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And which adds to the whole notion that American society has trained the people that doing the right thing is not cool. And they said that doing everything wrong is the cool thing. Hey, Ferris Bueller, bad guy in motorcycle jacket, motorcycle gets the girl, this and that. And that other guy over there is a square, is what they would call him. All of these gangster guys talking on, what's that guy's name? Adam 22's podcast on Pyru and on Crip. I'm not trying to disrespect you guys. All right. On O Block. All right. And they're sitting there saying all of these things, and they will call somebody that's a civilian a square as if it's a derogatory term. And they'll sit there and tell you, no, it's not a derogatory. You just ain't about this life, bro. You're a square. And why would they call those people a square? Because they're not in the streets. Because they're not doing the wrong thing. They're actually standing on a square. So when you're sitting there, you're doing square business. That means you're doing business the right way. So when you're standing on your square or being a square, that doesn't make you a loser as it's made in American society. So young men grow up trying to not be a square. Young women try not to be a square. And in their universe, it's being a pushover, being a traditional woman. So the values of everybody that's coming up nowadays is literally predicated to their destruction. So then, of course, when they become adults, the men buy it and the women sell it. And it's not everybody, because not everybody got caught up in the wash, but there's a lot of people who did. So the best thing that you can do is when you out here and you're doing your vetting process, when it comes to interpersonal relationships or romantic, the best thing is to determine who you're talking to. Yeah. Somebody that don't even know what they're saying because somebody else is talking for them and moving for them and behaving for them, or somebody that knows who they are. And the people that know who they are and have a purpose and are on their square, those are people you need to connect with. So all in all, a valuable lesson here, because we literally saw somebody, have somebody else speak for them, in 4K, what this young lady saying, what she's saying. So, a lot said there, man, but, hopefully you guys were picking up what I was putting down.
For sure. And, to speak to your point about American culture being a culture of consumerism, like even individuals who are cognizant of the presence of a square, they believe that being on their square is getting money or getting to some kind of a bag. Mm-hmm. So in a roundabout way for her, and I'm not even going to speak, I don't know what's in her head. Mm-hmm. So I'm not even going to necessarily suspect that she even understands these notions or concepts. But hypothetically speaking, if she did, talking like that to her, being on OnlyFans is being on her square. Yeah, because she's getting to the money. Yeah, getting to the bag. Because American culture is devoid of value sets and it's just getting the money.
Correct.
So if by any means, if you're getting to money, what American culture is impressing upon the population is you are on your square, even if you're doing it in weird, suspect, value avoidance ways.
And I'm a hater, because she's getting to the bag and I'm not.
Yeah, or hater, weirdo, lame, whatever other words, whatever other trigger words that they try to use to characterize that kind of thought process. But yes, yeah. So that's the whole thing about it is, even if you are doing something like this, like no one, her, like people who champion what she's doing, you can't convince them that what she's doing is not being on her square. Rather, it's the exact opposite. Her hopping to OnlyFans or any other woman who is either a direct or sex worker adjacent is being on their square because they're getting to this money.
And that just shows you how I just got co-opted. But I'm with you, bro.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, and that's if they even recognize the existence of the notion of a square, of being on a square in the first place. But which I don't believe she does. Like I said, I don't think she knows what she's saying when she says it. And to the legion of others who might be impressionable enough to be influenced by comments like that, they don't know the difference either. They're just looking for enough rationalizations to at some point in their existence become comfortable enough with taking the leap. And over time, there will be enough rationalizations banked in for them to become comfortable enough to make that decision. And that's what I refer to when I talk about the aggressive mainstreaming of sex work. Listen to what she just said. I'm not making this stuff up, people. This is what's going on. And it is a direct tie into our last conversation because it does speak to the presence of an entire society devoid of values.
Yeah, man. Tough to shout out to Bugs Bunny. I got nobody for that one, man.
Yeah, we on a roll here with this with these we on a roll with this stuff, man. So Benny the Butcher feels some type of way about social media, in particular Twitter. He feels as though the culture, whatever that means, is being controlled by Twitter nerds. And he has an issue with that because he feels like they've taken the power away from the streets. And you've lost your way. You've lost your way whenever the streets are no longer controlling the culture.
Damn.
So yeah, we'll go ahead and just read. I'm gonna just go ahead and share this. I can't really surmise it. I have to kind of read it because to get into the minds of some of these individuals is a tall task. But this says Benny the Butcher roasted for complaining that Twitter nerds control the culture. Benny the Butcher complained about the influence of nerds on social media and hip hop during a viral rant over the weekend. He argued that the voice of the streets doesn't matter as much, and there are pros and cons to the current dynamic. Y'all see the state the game is in when the streets don't hold the culture or the game, Benny said. Now you got the weird Twitter nerds and the nerds and all these weird MFers got their hands on the culture. The voice of the streets don't mean as much as it did when we was coming up. It was a lot of cons to that as well. I gotta say that. But you see what happens when the streets don't control the game no more. It's a lot of FN words. It's a lot of FN word stuff going on. And a lot of people are okay with it because they FN words.
Damn.
Fans have been having mixed reactions to Benny's take. I don't think Twitter nerds have all that much power when it comes to hip hop. One user replied when Kruko shared the clip. Another joke, does bro know who his fan base consists of?
Right.
Bro, Twitter nerds are the one who actually goes to the concerts and the one that streams albums, not just one songs, especially Unk's fan base. In other news, Benny has been making headlines for his long-standing feud with Freddie Gibbs, blah, 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 blah. So I'm not going to play the clip because the clip has said questionable language in it, and I don't want to have this video deprioritized. Because for anyone who doesn't know how YouTube works, you can pass all of YouTube's checks and not have the visibility of the video compromised, but YouTube's machine learning technology will still suppress the potential visibility of the video, even if you pass all of those checks. So, but all relevant links, of course, are in the description of this video, so you can go and check that out for yourself. But it pretty much sums up what he had to say there. So, what do you think about Mr. Butcher going in on Twitter nerds for controlling the culture instead of the streets?
The streets, man. Listen, man. So Benny, and I brought up Benny a few weeks ago or whatever, in passing, because I do think he's a talented guy. It just sucks that he chooses to rap about the stuff that he raps about. Because I would listen to a lot more of it. But he is speaking from his perspective of his persona, avatar, whatever you want to call it, his rap mystique, whatever it is that his image is. That's what came out in that clip. I think he thought that he was going to get applauded more for this than the backlash that he got, because of the character that he plays in the rap game is, dope dealing, I'll clap you, bricks in the trunk, that type of mentality. And so when that's everything that you talk about, then when you actually decide to come out with a clip and, record something because something got to you, and you're going to talk to your real really online and say what he said, about the Twitter nerds. Yeah, I really think that he felt that, a lot of people was going to come, applaud that. But what it came off as, at least to me, because I didn't get offended by the term nerd or any of that stuff, because I'm not on Twitter. And I don't get into whatever that would be. That place is toxic, man. But as somebody that, is a fan of, rap in itself, I think I know what he's talking about. And I think this is more targeted towards bloggers now. So it's not traditional blogging like it was in the early 2000s or whatever, but I'm pretty sure the nerds that he was referring to weren't everyday fans, weren't casuals. It was people that have a pulse on the culture, so to speak, and they talk about rappers, they give narratives, they do this, they do that, and those guys may not be giving him the praise or the adulation and all of that stuff that he wants or feel like he deserves in the rap game. And he feels like he's probably getting marginalized or whatever by these nerds. And so those were the people that I felt as though that comment was directed towards. I don't think it was directed towards the average person that's on Twitter who gives a take on Benny the Butcher. And so I think that that's what that was all about. But still, it came off as an out of touch person who is in touch more with his internet persona than reality. And him giving this take was out the page of Rick Ross, who we've brought up many a time on this platform. And every time Rick Ross goes viral, it's a caricature of a person. And we can clearly see that Rick Ross is playing a character. And so Benny the Butcher, every time I've seen him not rapping, he's being this guy. And I guess part of it really is him, but a lot of it is him. I don't want to say selling it to us, but it's not, it doesn't come off authentic. It comes off like he's trying to sell to us that he's tough. And, with his choice of words there. So all in all, I think this is a situation where, Benny lost in the sauce. made a video and thought that he was going to get more praise for this than he actually did. So, am I in favor of the backlash? Yeah, to a degree. I feel like these people need to be course corrected because if we just let these guys run roughshod, these guys' internet persona, which isn't real, would actually be infusing the population with dangerous rhetoric or dangerous philosophies on life. So I'm glad that some people spoke out on this, but I do think this is a situation of a rapper man who's becoming really a rapper man. But what are your thoughts, man, on Benny the Butcher saying that he ain't got time for these internet nerds because there's some FNs. And the only people that agree with them are FNs themselves. What are your thoughts, man?
So, I believe that Benny the Butcher thinks hip hop is synonymous with the streets.
Yeah,
I think, he's cut from that cloth as an artist, and that's not a judgment in any way. I'm just analyzing the prism that he comes from as an artist. He's a street guy, so for him, hip hop is the streets, right? And in a lot of ways, in terms of its appeal as a commercial product, hip hop has been co-opted with the streets. I think a lot of the content of the music that is mainstreamed and popularized, for the most part, is synonymous with a particular type of content, which tends to correlate to the streets. You have a few exceptions. You have your, you got you got Kendrick and people like that, J. Cole, or some of these other artists who will kind of break through the mold. Some of the ones who are more on the more indie side, people like Chance the Rapper or whatever. I'm just kind of spitballing here with names, but you'll have some artists who I would not characterize as street rappers who will cut through and realize mainstream success. But I think for the most part, as a commercial product, hip hop in the streets have been conflated, and as a mainline commercial product, it has become synonymous with the streets. And so Benny the Butcher being an artist who is a street rapper is consistent with the idea that hip hop is for the streets. So the reason why I say that is I would imagine that if you are somebody who believes that hip hop is the streets, then you are probably going to be view individuals who are taking part in your culture who you perceive to not be for the streets in an antagonistic fashion. But the thing about it is, as a mainline commercial product, you're going to have people who are a part of the tapestry of the music who you are going to perceive to not be for the streets, because that's what it means to be a commercial product. Not everybody is cut from the same cloth. Not everybody comes from the same background. So you're going to have people who he probably perceives to be outsiders, who he looks at and they're not for the streets, or they are not a part of the streets, or don't know very much about the streets, or they didn't come from the streets. But those individuals are inclined to take part in and talk about and opine on the music. And a lot of those individuals probably do those things on Twitter, I would imagine.
Apparently.
And so he's probably looking at those people and he's probably looking at this and he's calling them Twitter nerds. And what he is insinuating via the use of the word nerd is outsider. Somebody who's not for the streets, who's not from the streets, who's not a part of the streets. That's code for what he is saying when he uses the word nerd. And a lot of these people, I've already told you, I think hip hop journalism is dead.
It's disgusting.
I think hip hop journalism is dead for the most part. But in the various small pockets where you do have people who may or may not from time to time talk critically about the music or the culture around the music, he might perceive those individuals to be quote unquote nerds because they are talking about a mainline commercial product, but they don't necessarily come at it from the context of being somebody who's from the streets. and he believes hip hop is the streets. So there's just a difference of philosophy when it comes to like what hip hop is all about, which is actually a part of the genre's problem, which is often what we talk about here on this channel. It has ceased to be balanced, and it's become all about one particular point of view at this point of time, the street point of view. And he's consistent with that given where he comes from. So he kind of feels like he is a part of the culture and he is a part of the majority voice, which to his credit, he's not wrong. He's not wrong because of the way that the music has been packaged and sold and commodified. So you are probably going to have a lot of these people who aren't street people, but nevertheless still listen to the music, talk about the music, and talk about the artists who make the music. And he probably looks at those people adversarially. They're the others, the outsiders, the enemies, the people who shouldn't be talking about us because they ain't for the streets. That's kind of how I feel like he looks at it.
Yeah, and it also ties into what I was saying, in the last topic where I was mentioning that the things that are deemed cool are the things that are not good for you. And people that are often doing the right thing are made to seem like squares, or in this context, nerds, because they didn't come from the street. They never chopped a brick. And so therefore, you can't understand my bars. All right. When I say I've got some hidden in the fender. And it's like, well, yeah, I guess, you hit it in the fender, I guess, But when every bar is a Coke bar, when every bar is talking about how you would unalive somebody,
bro,
at some point it gets old.
You know what's funny about that is you like to bang on Pusha T, rightfully so, because of that. Benny the Butcher is not much different.
No, he's not.
Benny the Butcher might be worse.
In many contexts, he is. In
terms of every song being about cocaine and offing people, Benny the Butcher might be worse.
He is. And this is the thing. I'm so deprived of bars that I would listen to guys that talk like this. I would listen to guys that talk like this just so I can hear bars in between.
Right. Yeah.
And so the thing is with Pusha, though, and I gave him so much flack, is because it sounds like Pusha is stepping down to talk like that. Benny is talking like somebody that thinks that this is everything. For whatever reason, it annoys me when I feel like a smarter person is stepping. That's why Jay-Z pissed me off.
Yeah.
But if it really sound like, hey man, give this guy 17.5, he might buy a brick. There's a little grace given there for whatever reason. I can't explain it. But still, nevertheless, it's not like I have a Benny playlist. If I'm listening to stuff and then all his boys come on, I'll listen to a song here just so I can hear some bars. But at some point, it gets to the point where I'm like, all right, I've heard enough.
Enough is enough. Yeah.
There's something else. I don't want to hear this stuff anymore. So that's why I say this guy's got a lot of talent, in my opinion, compared to other guys out nowadays. And I feel like he wastes it, on that type of stuff.
But he's right at home, though.
Apparently so. And that's what this video showed me, is that hey, this is the page he on. No wonder he talks like that in his songs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Music that'll get you roped off, give you fed time while these guys are in the studio somewhere. You know what I'm saying? No different than them box rappers out there that's telling these women to stay single and sell a box but got husband and kids. And so I don't dig that. But all in all, I really feel like Benny is, in this context and at any other time, is promoting that ideology of doing the wrong thing is the cool thing. I mean, that's literally all of his music, And so him using terminology like nerd in this context, putting a connotation on people who hadn't been street, don't do street stuff.
Right.
So therefore you are a nerd, which is, which it's dangerous rhetoric because it reinforced the mindset of, hey man, I need to go cop a key, you know. So yeah, man, all them boys, man. I'm really more disappointed in Conway. I wish Conway would actually make other songs because he's really the best out of all of those guys. But no, he's still gonna do what he do and say what he say. So, and I'm not expecting them to change, but you know, it's just one of those things. But all in all, yeah, man, I think that this story here, it reflects the mindset of what I was saying in the earlier topic, that there's agents of guys, you know, or guys that are agents of this mindset of do the wrong thing, you know, be like me in my songs and do the wrong thing. And being street is cool.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't agree here. I don't agree with that. And yeah, I just think that these guys need to grow up. Even if I was a fan of him in that context and I saw this clip, I'd be like, come on, man, like this is what we're doing with our internet time, this is what we're doing with our bandwidth. But hey, you know, that's the current state of hip-hop, I guess.
Yeah, and I could be wrong on that. That's my speculation, that what he means is not for the streets.
No, that's what he was getting at.
Yeah. But because I can totally see him using the word nerd to describe somebody who he perceives to be not from the streets.
They never copped the bird or you know what I'm saying? Never been indicted. You know.
But the thing is, and there was the one commenter who pointed it out, rightfully so, like, bro, hip hop as a genre ceased to be only communicating to the streets decades ago. Like,
right.
it's been a commercialized, commodified product sold to a worldwide audience for quite some time now. And given that as its status, you're going to have a lot of people who are not from the streets listening to this stuff. And a lot of those people are going to be listening to Benny the Butcher music, even though you're looking at them saying, why is this nerd listening to my songs? Well, the music industry has effectively packaged this as all of hip hop. And so if somebody wants to listen to hip hop music, part of the participation in that is perhaps listening to Benny the Butcher songs. You're looking at that saying that this person's a nerd. They're just looking at it as a consumer of hip hop. Right. Why? Because hip hop in the streets have become synonymous, and it is something that's sold to everybody as a product. Mm-hmm. So to that commenter's point, which I agree with, who are your fans, bro? It's the same people,
right?
Like the same individuals who are streaming your stuff on right. whatever app, or who are paying for it, or I don't know where he does live shows, but a decent portion of the people who might go to a Benny the Butcher live show are probably going to be same said nerds. That's the fan base, bro. So that's the industry that you're in. I feel like at this point to complain about it is to show that you are complaining about something that would have made sense if you were complaining about it 20 years ago, but definitely not at this point.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, you can certainly let that go because it ain't gonna be just street people or non-nerds listening to you or anybody else who you think they shouldn't be a part of it, because they are.
Right, man. And well said, bro. And according to him, you know, only real ends can listen to his music. You know what I'm saying? And but last I checked, man, all the real ends are either dead or in jail or on their way to both. You know what I'm saying? So you know, he needs to bring it down a notch. When you're in the booth, that's one thing, but when you're sharing a post, you're not in the booth. If you said that on a track, everybody calls that a bar. All right. But when you sit in there, you make a post out of that. This is supposed to be your real life. And people don't resonate with these cartoon character ways that these rappers conduct themselves. Yeah. So I think this is a situation where he's just not in touch with reality. You know, he's feeling too much of his persona.
Yeah. I feel that. Hey man, it is what it is. Shout out to Benny the Butcher and the whole Griselda crew.
Griselda. You know what I'm saying? Buffalo in the building, man.
Oh, you nerds.
Mr. Butt Fumble himself, man.
Now, this is a weird story, man. So it broke over the weekend that Mark Sanchez was in the hospital being treated after a stabbing incident. Now, when I first saw that, I was like, "What the heck happened to him?" Like,
Oh, man.
I said, "Did somebody try to like rob him? Like, what happened here? Was this like a Ricky Pearsall situation,
Right.
or what happened?" Then more details comes out, and apparently, according to the reports, Mark Sanchez was wasted and got into a physical altercation with a service worker who tried to defend himself. Long story short, Mark Sanchez ends up in the hospital, and now this service worker is suing not only Mark Sanchez but Fox Sports as well.
Rightfully
So
so, man. Rightfully so.
this is quite the bizarre story, man. So this says Mark Sanchez and Fox sued after alleged assault in Indianapolis. Mark Sanchez and the network that employs him are both being sued in connection with the violent incident that occurred over the weekend in Indianapolis. According to court documents reviewed by Complex, delivery driver Perry Toll accused the former NFL quarterback of assault and battery in a civil complaint filed on October 6th. In the lawsuit, Toll alleges 38-year-old Sanchez appeared intoxicated and instigated the altercation on October 4th while the plaintiff was working at the loading dock of the Westin Hotel. Toll claims Sanchez tried to enter his work truck without permission, blocked him from using his phone, and physically shoved him, prompting Toll to use pepper spray in self-defense. Despite this, the altercation escalated, and Toll says it left him with serious injuries to his head, jaw, and neck. The man also claims he was left with severe permanent disfigurement, loss of function, other physical injuries, and emotional distress, among other damages. Toll is also suing Fox Corporation, Sanchez's employer, for negligent hiring, retention, and supervision. He claims Fox knew or should have known that Sanchez was unfit for employment due to a propensity for drinking and harmful behavior.
Oh, wow.
Sanchez was arrested after being stabbed multiple times during the confrontation. He now faces charges including felony battery involving serious bodily injury, misdemeanor battery, public intoxication, and unlawful entry of a motor vehicle. Sanchez had been scheduled to call the Indianapolis Colts versus Las Vegas Raiders game for Fox Sports in Indianapolis, but was replaced by Brady Quinn after the incident. Toll is seeking compensatory and punitive damages as well as legal costs. Oh, so what do you make of this, man? This is such a weird, bizarre story, bro.
It is. Like, I heard about it. I heard about, Mark getting caught up in a situation on Fox. They was, saying, "Oh, let's pray for Mark Sanchez," and blah blah blah. I'm like, "Oh man, that's crazy." Right before he was about to go do a game, so I'm thinking that just typical unfortunate situation. But then once the details started to come out about this, a 69-year-old man or something like that said, this guy, the worker guy, I think they've said that his job is to just pick up used oil, in his truck, and he's just there to do his job to pick up oil from the hotel. And Mark Sanchez just literally runs up on him. Like, what kind of drunken rage is that, man? Like, I don't get that. But apparently, at least that's what the narrative is at this point, that, Sanchez pulled up on him. The old man pepper sprayed Sanchez. And Sanchez just went rampage mode and just ran up on Buddy. Once I saw the, I don't know if we can't show it here, guys, but if you guys look at the photo of the guy that was in this attack, that guy got done in pretty good. So Sanchez, I don't know how this is going to play out for him. But a 69-year-old man, looking like that in the hospital, it's not a good look.
Yeah,
it's not a good look. So Fox Sports is the Pitts. It's the benefits of sports entertainment. If you get fired from Fox Sports, you're pretty much done. And honestly, you know, I'm not trying to project anything here. An investigation still has to be done. The right pieces got to fall in place. But this is really looking like a situation where Mr. Sanchez is cooked here. And he's probably he's gonna have to find another way, you know, make his own podcast or join somebody else's podcast, because I don't see how anybody's gonna not see this the wrong way. Whether Sanchez was the aggressor or the old man, but I'm telling you right now, it's gonna be, unless there's like some real good footage. I see the, you know, image of some CCTV footage of Mark Sanchez walking ominously down a street alleyway. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that there's more footage of this. So if there's more footage that comes out that you know, lets Mark off the hook, then so be it. But I'm telling you right now, on paper, this looks like a wild situation that Mark Sanchez is on the wrong side of history on. And I guess once the facts actually come out, this guy might be done at Fox and may have a hard time recovering in the public's eye when it comes to anything, you know, media related. So, which is this guy's bread and butter at this point in his life. So, wild situation, bro. I really don't know what to make of it. I just think it's an insane story. You know, of every detail that I've heard of this, it gets even more bizarre. But to me, on paper, it looks like Sanchez may have been in the wrong here.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, man, on Mark Sanchez allegedly attacking an old man in an alleyway? Okay, it may not be in an alleyway, but attacking an old man and getting stabbed himself, Mark Sanchez, that is, multiple times. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, at least up to this point, it's looking like Mark Sanchez is the assailant.
Yeah.
In the matter. Hey, look, man, reading through that article and seeing what the guy is suing Fox for, normally I would roll my eyes and see, and like normally reading something like that, I'd roll my eyes and say this is overly litigious.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular instance, I'm kind of okay with it. You know, assuming that the reports are true, you know, like I think Sanchez is done.
Yeah,
I don't think Sanchez is going to be on Fox anymore.
Yeah.
So if Sanchez continues to have a career in media, it'll be some low-key network that people don't really watch like that. You know what I'm saying? Like it ain't gonna be a major network like ESPN or Fox or something like that. He's done as far as that's concerned, as far as I can tell. So it'll, yeah, like you said, it'll be his own podcast or it'll be more low-key thing or local radio or something like that. In terms of mainstream, I think he's done. Having said that, the only reason why I bring that up is because despite that, he's going to be fine. He's going to be good. Yeah. So I'm not crying a river for him necessarily, because this to me isn't a situation where he said something disagreeable and now people are trying to cancel him. Like it kind of looks like he was just, you know, shark-faced and went in on somebody and he went in on somebody because he wasn't in his right state of mind.
Yeah.
And so, you know, having said that, even though I am typically averse to overly litigious situations, I'm okay with this one because number one, Sanchez is going to be all right, and number two, this Toll guy is Perry Toll. That's his name, Perry Toll. You know, man, like I sympathize and empathize with service workers. You know what I'm saying? Service workers, laborers got it hard enough out here as it is. You know what I'm saying? Like people who have to work for a living, you know, thanklessly have to put in far too many hours and far too many days for not nearly a commensurate return on what they are earning. You know what I'm saying? And so if a byproduct of this very weird, bizarre situation is him being able to score a legal victory that sees him earning compensatory damages from someone and an entity that can afford to part ways with it, as in Fox, then you know what I'm saying? I hope that that's the result, because him being somebody who apparently was just minding his own business and doing his job and now has to deal with stuff like this, like it's ridiculous. And this to me is, I'm kind of speaking from a personal point of view, being somebody who has and continues to work for a living, and being someone who has worked in the service industry and been a service worker and has, for the vast majority of my life, been a laborer. You're getting your butt whipped every day via working, right? And so it kind of sucks to not only get your butt whipped every day having to go to work and clock in, but then you just kind of unceremoniously get your butt whipped by a belligerently drunk Mark Sanchez.
Right.
Like, nobody wants that. So I hope that this results in, and again, to be reasonable, I don't want to see Mark Sanchez kind of get, cast off into like professional purgatory where he can never work again. Like, I hope the guy continues to, earn a livelihood in some capacity in sports media, because that's clearly what he's good at doing and that's what he likes doing. So I don't want to see him sulk away into obscurity for forever. But at the same time, if a cost for him to pay is he no longer works for Fox anymore, and then this guy receives some compensatory damages and maybe he doesn't have to be a laborer anymore, I'd be good with that result.
Yeah. And, I don't know, man. Like, I know that there's, the happy drunks and the angry drunks. And I'm sure there's often times where there's just drunk guys that get overly aggressive in the streets all the time and get into fist fights and stuff. But I don't know, man. Like, you really gotta be on one to be at a hotel because you're about to do a game the next night.
Literally.
You know what I'm saying? Like, the only reason why you're in the lovely city of Indianapolis, shout out to Indianapolis, okay, is because you got a game tomorrow. So on top of the world in many respects. So I don't know. I mean, the article alludes. I don't know. I didn't know about that, but the article alludes to him being an abuser of alcohol. I wouldn't be surprised if there was another controlled substance that had him influenced. But yeah, man, this is too much smoke around this situation to go, I don't know, Mark Sanchez is in the innocent. This guy literally, picks up used oil from, places. Like, this guy,
So
he's
weird.
old as I don't know what. Like, he's not out here, to mess with people.
Weird.
It's a weird situation, man. So honestly, I don't know what the takeaway from this could be, outside of, just being grateful for where you're at. You might not be in a Mark Sanchez situation where you get, your job flying you out and, giving you hotel accommodations or something, but, it's still a situation where, just being grateful for where you at and not blowing it, trying to have a good time. But it sounds like this is something that Mark may have been dealing with for a while. And honestly, it might be because, I don't know, there's no statistics on this, but I would highly argue that, first time getting drunkers or casual drinkers don't turn aggressive. This might be some CTE stuff. If I were him, I would holler that in court and say, hey, man, I got hit in the head too many times. So, forgive me. Sometimes I have fits of rage. So maybe he can play this off, man, and, duck and roll. But, if I was a member of this guy's family, the guy that, the old man is just trying to do his thing, you damn right. I want the Sanchez check and the Fox check because the Fox was paying him to be there.
Yeah.
One thing that I did when, during C-19, when my job sent me home, they was like, all right, man, you can leave the house, you need to be working at home. I'm like, all right, cool, man. But if you leave the house, You have to clock out. And they were telling me that because if I'm just out and I'm on the clock, you know, they're not technically liable, but they kind of are, you know, and they don't want to be responsible for me doing anything and, you know, car accident, God forbid, or anything else like that. So there's like, just clock out when you're about to leave the house or, you know, stuff like that. So, and the reason why they say that is because we're paying for you to be here. So Fox was paying for Sanchez to be there. One of their people, that man that's getting paid currently at that moment, is beating my behind. Yeah, I want everybody money. So, yeah, man. Shouts out to the old man for defending himself. I don't think Sanchez was going to take his life, but maybe he was. Man. Who knows what Mark Sanchez was on that night, man? These photos look eerie. When I'm walking in the hallway like that.
It's just so weird, man. It's just weird. Like I don't have a rhyme or reason to make of it. It's just weird. That is a bizarre, you know, just Mark Sanchez gets into a guy's truck and then they start fighting and he gets stabbed. And it's just a weird story. It's weird.
So random, man.
But you know, I don't know if it's a good or bad omen, but Mark Sanchez's wife is also named Perry. So, you know, because the guy who he assaulted, allegedly, his name's Perry. So, I don't know. Maybe it's a good omen, or on the other hand, perhaps it's a bad omen. But, you know, it's just, you know, it's funnily coincidental that his wife has the same name as this guy. But who knows what's going to happen, man. But listen, shouts out to all my service workers out there.
Yeah,
sure. The backbone of America.
That's right.
People who have to work for a living but get no appreciation whatsoever because American culture is running around idolizing weird celebrities and athletes. You guys are the real MVPs, and hopefully the resolution is sufficient for this guy because no one wants to deal with stuff like that when you're already dealing with enough having to go to work every day.
Unbelievable, man. Yeah, shouts out to Buddy, man. You know what I'm saying? Laid up in a hospital bed. Get well soon, bro.
And we close things out with another odd controversy involving Kyron Lacey. So the story's been going around about Kyron Lacey lately. Unfortunately, it looks as though Kyron Lacey unalived himself. He was, you know, in legal trouble because he was, you know, being cited for, what is it, negligent vehicular homicide or something like that. But then apparently there was a development in the case where apparently he wasn't responsible, but it was being made to look like he was. But now there has been a response to that, which shows that, you know, it wasn't a setup. And so yet another bizarre story here. So this says Kyron Lacey, cops release footage of crash contradicting attorney's story. The Louisiana State Police have released surveillance video of the Kyron Lacey accident, as well as witness accounts of the incident contradicting claims that the late LSU football star did not cause the fatal crash. LSP dropped the critical incident briefing video on Tuesday, days after Lacey's attorney, Matthew Ori, shared footage allegedly showing Kyron's green Charger 100 yards away from the accident scene during the December 2024 crash that unalived 78-year-old Herman Hall. In the newly released state police video, Lacey is seen speeding in the opposing traffic lane, passing 3 cars and a loaded 18-wheeler in a 40 miles per hour zone just moments before the crash. According to LSP, due to Lacey's driving, a female driver swerved left into oncoming traffic, colliding head-on with Hall, who tragically died from his injuries. The video shows Lacey aggressively braking to re-enter the southbound lane near the time of the crash. The surviving female victim, seen lying injured on the ground, told officers she swerved to avoid a car weaving through traffic, which forced the truck in front of her to slam on its brakes. Despite Lacey's actions being the primary cause of the chain of events leading to the fatal crash, according to cops, LSP still cited the woman. Police also released new body cam footage showing several witnesses at the scene, with one telling police the green Charger caused all this. Lacey was charged with negligent homicide, felony hit and run, and reckless operation of a vehicle, but died by unaliving on April 12, 2025, before facing the charges. Now, there's a clip of the lawyer trying to explain that Kyron Lacey is innocent, and then there's also the body cam footage of the investigation with the eyewitnesses saying what happened or what they saw. So y'all can be the judge, but we will play the lawyer talking about the situation. We won't play the clip of the body cam with the cops, investigating the situation with the eyewitnesses because it's a bit too long. But here's the cop of the attorney talking about Kyron Lacey being innocent, apparently or allegedly.
Yeah, so what you'll see is in the top left of the screen, you're going to see multiple cars just making their way south to Thibodaux, coming from Vacherie. At some point in time, you're going to see the collision, which we're going to know is vehicle number 2 from oncoming traffic colliding with the vehicle of Mr. Hall. You will see another vehicle come to a stop, and then you'll see Kyron Lacey come to a stop.
So as we've seen the video, it looks like the impact happens, and then Kyron Lacey is behind him. How far away was he from there?
Well, yeah, that's the beauty of the investigative report that I now have my hands on. We know from data that Kyron Lacey did in fact pass 4 cars. There's no disputing that. Further north, Kyron Lacey passed 4 cars. However, he was back in his lane of travel, 92.3 yards. Back in his lane, behind Mr. Hall. At the time of impact, he's 72.6 yards behind the vehicles at the time of impact. Keyword, behind the vehicles. That is not how this story was ever painted. Never.
Any part of the district attorney's investigation that talked about Mr. Lacey getting back, I guess we call it, what do you call it, correcting or getting in your proper lane?
Sure, he was back in his proper lane according to their data. This isn't my expert. This is the investigation of the Lafourche Parish District Attorney's Office. So I'm here simply comparing and contrasting the District Attorney's Office with state police in this matter, their investigations. And in that investigation.
All right. So this to me is another very strange, bizarre situation. But so, yeah, what do you think is, what do you make of this? What are your impressions?
First of all, very unfortunate situation all the way around. So, condolences to everybody that's involved. All right. And I'm with you on the fact that this is a strange situation. When this first happened, there was plenty of opportunity to speak on it. Even when, he unalived himself, there was also an area for us to talk on it. But, I just wanted to, give this situation its respect, and I didn't want to bring it up as a topic, but there was a groundswell of support and disgust and all type of things going on the internet once the clip of the attorney came out and people actually saw the footage. And at least as far as I'm concerned, today is concerned, that this rebuttal of evidence came out so the police department can clear the air on their behalf. And seeing the footage of him passing those other cars, seeing the person who actually hit the other person, some elderly woman. It's a tough matter to call, in the sense of, was he genuinely at fault? But the fact of the matter is, when you're on the road performing stunts like that, as he was, you don't know who you're sharing the road with. And if that woman that said that they hit that other car, and the way that they didn't swerve off into the shoulder, they swerved into traffic. But you don't know who you're driving with when you're pulling these stunts, and they could swerve into traffic because they're an old person and they don't have high reactionary skills or whatever. And so to me, I just think it was an unfortunate situation. The guy in the car blasting his music, just trying to go somewhere. These people moving too slow. I hate this street with one lane. you know,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And he in his heart of hearts, he know that was just an accident. Kyron and his people. I'm sure he in many ways he thought that it really wasn't his fault, but given the circumstance by law, I'm sure it will be seen in the court's eyes that it was his fault. So he was left in a very difficult situation, and so he ended up doing what he did. But all in all, my take on this situation was, yeah, man, he was a young dude who was, just trying to live his young dude life. Because I know me personally, I used to pull stunts when I was his age in a car.
Yeah, I've had my fair share of very questionable driving decisions for sure.
Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? And I learned some of them from you, bro. Boy, you'll be taking us somewhere. And I'm like, Lord Jesus, take the wheel now. Jesus, take the wheel. Oh man, I didn't know how you was doing it, bro. You was whipping that thing. And I was like, damn, yeah, I'm sitting there driving my little Toyota. I'm like, bro, I can whip this thing. So I started whipping my little Toyota, going crazy on the road. So I know what it is to be a young person, you know what I'm saying, in that situation. And no, you didn't anticipate none of that to happen if you were this young man. But I mean, stuff really just went down that way. And yeah, it's just a real unfortunate situation. But the internet was up in arms because they were really in this position because they only saw the attorney's footage and his explanation of the situation. Yeah. And, they was like, oh, Kyron's innocent, Kyron's innocent. At this point, I don't know what's up. But I know one thing is that an attorney's job is to be an attorney. Mm-hmm. And he used that footage to his advantage. He brought it. And I'm like, why you bring this public, bro? But, that's what he needs to do. Because nowadays a court of public opinion matters more was going on in court.
Yep.
And his job is to put reasonable doubt in the air. The diddler getting 4 years due to money and reasonable doubts, I'm sure.
And there's speculation that he won't even do all of that.
You know what I'm saying? So that Cambodian breast milk is not too far for him. You know what I'm saying? It is on the way, bro. So all in all, I think the attorney is doing his job here of court of public opinion situation, and also because the law is what it is. And if you could put enough reasonable doubt in the air that yes, he did pass those 4 cars. However, he was in his lane well before that person made that move. And one can look at the footage that way. One can hear the stories that way. So him putting that in the mind's eye of the people, I don't know if this is going to retroactively go to court or anything like that because, he's already passed. Like, I don't even know how that's going to work, but it's still a situation where the lawyer is lawyering this. And, but yeah, I just think all around it's just a sad situation. But what are your thoughts, man, on the Kyron Lacey situation, just taking, an interesting development at this point? What are your thoughts, bro?
Yeah, it is a very sad situation, and I really don't have an angle on it one way or the other. It's just it sucks because it resulted in the 2 deaths. Mm-hmm. I'm not too intimately involved with the story. I don't know anybody who is involved, but I would imagine that part of what made this so devastating for the young man himself was that it resulted in somebody losing their life.
Yeah.
Now obviously no one wants to deal with, reckless driving or any of those sorts of legal issues. No one wants to deal with anything like that. But I feel like obviously it's made insurmountably worse when somebody loses their life. I'm pretty sure that weighed heavily on him. So it sucks, man. It really does suck. It's interesting. I noticed what you noticed. Once the angle of him not causing the accident came out, I was waiting for the social justice stuff to start because I figured that would be next, and I haven't seen too much of it. I did see Ryan Clark, of course. He did his social justice thing on Monday night. Monday Night Football. I guess that was last night, where he talked about it, and basically, because to me right now, based upon everything that I'm seeing, everything looks inconclusive.
Yeah, right.
But Ryan Clark, of course, was very conclusive in declaring Lacey's innocence on national television. I thought that was a bit weird. I was uncomfortable with that, but it's Ryan Clark, so what are you gonna do?
Right.
But that's kind of what I was waiting on, is where is the social justice angle of this? The whole, they're trying to set up to bring down the name of another black man and all that kind of stuff, or another young black person. Me not seeing so much of that, to me, is indicative of the possibility. Well, let me take that back. Me not seeing very much of that is indicative of this situation's inconclusiveness.
Yeah.
Typically, when people go full board with the victimhood stuff, it's because they have a generally confident sense that there was indeed some wrongdoing which took place. But I feel like because we're not seeing very much of that there's at least the specter of the idea that it could still go either way in terms of who actually was at fault or what actually happened. Because if you watch the video of the body cam and you see the eyewitness reports, that looks authentic to me. You know what I'm saying? That looks authentic to me. Stuff can be doctored or whatever. You never know. Weird stuff goes on all the time. But if you watch that video, that seems authentic to me. But then also the idea that he didn't cause it because he was 70 yards away or whatever, that also is, I think, plausible, especially when, to your point, you're trying to instill a bit of reasonable doubt in the mind's eye of people in the legal process. And I will say this as well. You make a good point when you talk about the court of public opinion having an influential sway in the way things turn out. That is definitely true, especially in this day and age, because putting something out into the world that does have an element of some sort of a racial victimization or racial bias, because that's where it will go if people start to suspect that stuff was set up to work against him. It's going to become a racial conversation. It will. And in the event that does take place, public opinion does have the potential to be influential in regards to the way things turn out in terms of its outcome. So, you know what I'm saying? We'll see how it plays out. I think at this point it's totally inconclusive. And I just feel terrible for the loss of life. To me, that's the overall point of the whole situation, both for him as well as the older guy who was involved in the collision. Because you think that the old man was probably driving, doing whatever that he normally does every day,
right?
And then this happens. Like, that's devastating,
right.
And then even for him, man, like he was probably just being young and I don't know, doing something in the moment, a bit irresponsible. You don't know if something like this is going to happen. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but it's just the element of it where there's loss of life is just devastating. So I hope that however it concludes, it's an amicable one and not one where there's some sort of weird shenanigans going on. That's pretty much all I can say.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to any weird shenanigans. But there's definitely opposing factions going on and building on the internet about this. And I think also due to its inconclusive nature, it will always be that way. There's going to be factions, one that's saying, nah, he did it. And there's going to be others that said, nah, man, whatever. And Ryan Clark said what he said last night. I didn't see the footage. But I saw a headline mentioning that Ryan Clark was talking about it, and I can only imagine how that was.
Oh, he went all in on the speculation is true, and he's 100% innocent. And they're setting him up. Ryan Clark went all the way in on that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that the the police releasing this footage the day after is not a coincidence. Because it was already, me personally, it was already big news on at least TikTok, where people were saying that, oh, he's innocent. And I'm not here to say he's innocent or guilty.
Yeah.
I just think that the footage of that lawyer went super viral. And I think Kyron, and again, condolences to his family, man. I think Kyron was 1 year away from getting drafted before all of this. I don't know if none of this happened and he declared to go to the draft. I'm sure he would have gotten drafted at some point. It wasn't going to be a high rounder. But after this situation, he declared for the draft. Which I thought was pretty sporadic. There was just a lot going on with this. And, I was hoping that he wasn't responsible, but I didn't know. And, I was just hoping the best for this guy, because his play on the field was sporadic, and his on the sidelines antics, shenanigans when it came to celebrations or, uploading videos post game and stuff like that. It was all hyper activity. So to hear that he was involved in a situation where he was driving in a hyper fashion, I wasn't surprised, unfortunately. And, and I much like you, I think the loss of life here is what really got to this dude, and pretty much, draft prospects and other things, going through the window. It sucks, man. But, the NFL has a way of making things go away for some people. Not for Henry Ruggs, but for people like Isaiah Bond, for instance, and others who will get into their situations. And, the NFL can make things go away. If this happened while he was in the league, it might be a Rasheed Wright situation, But this dude, he unalived himself before any of that stuff became a thing, or whatever. And I just think that this is overall just it's a tough situation. So, yeah, man, we'll see how this plays out. I'm not here nor there with it. I just think it sucks.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I don't want to hear because they don't know what happened, or they're not in a position to call it, one way or another, not with this evidence that they got. So I think everybody just needs to be respectful and get out of the way, and not be weird about it. So
yeah, man. The loss of life aspect of it is very sad and unfortunate on both accounts. Yeah, I just tremendous condolences to everybody involved, because the old man, I'm pretty sure he has family too.
Yeah.
Kyron got family, and you wake up one day and you never know how the day is going to end, man. It's crazy. But
stay safe out there, man. And if you're a young man and you're out here pulling stunts, bro, trust me, I understand. Okay, I was pulling those stunts. I pretty much stopped around 22, 23. But that's how old he was. So yeah, man, just be safe out there, y'all. And just a simple, hey, I'm gonna do this little execution real quick. It might not pan out well. And honestly, I'm pretty sure you see it all the time down there in Miami, bro. People driving on the shoulder and doing all kinds of stuff because it's too much traffic. And you never know how that's gonna pan out either. So y'all just stay safe out here, man.
Well, no, there's wrecks all over the place down here because people have the attention span of a cockroach, and can't put the phone down while they're driving.
Lord have mercy. Going 75.
I kid you not. Driving down here, I encounter a minimum of 4 or 5 accidents each week.
Yeah,
and I might be underselling it. And every time you see it, it's an accident where you say, how exactly does that even happen?
Yep.
Like the physics of it is just weird. Like, how does that happen?
Yep.
I'm personally of the belief that all of these are happening because someone's not paying attention. At least one of the individuals involved in this accident is on the phone, not actually looking at the road. And everyone is doing this. It's just a matter of time as to when you're going to end up in your own accident, because you can only do that but so many times before inevitably, statistically, it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah.
People need to stop with that stuff, but they won't. People are going to keep doing this crazy stuff. But that's why it's happening, and it's an epidemic down here, bro. The rate of accidents down here is out of control. It's crazy.
Yeah,
and mind you, I see the amount of accidents that I see every week, and I don't commute to work. I don't even really go nowhere like that. So, the limited time that I actually drive per week, and I still see that many accidents. So imagine if I was actually driving a lot. So yeah, it's crazy, man. People have bad driving habits, to say the least.
Yeah. Hey, y'all stay safe, man. Here at the Conscious Approach, we're safe drivers, guys. It's the responsible side of things, man.
Yeah. Yep. On that note, man, we're gonna go ahead and get up out of here. JV Wins Dogon SS. Check us out on Instagram at Conapproach, CONAPPROACH. Check us out on TikTok at Conapproach. Same thing, CONAPPROACH. I'm also on Instagram at JV Wins, JVWINS. Search us out, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And as I always like to say, man, don't be a group thinker. Have a mind of your own. Think for yourself. Don't let others think for you, like Liz Cambridge does, apparently. And until next time, man, we're moving on to the NBA season. Of course, I'm gonna still root for my Seminoles during the bowl games, because we'll qualify for a bowl. But I don't know about the playoff at this point. But in the event that there is a mutually hated enemy, I'll also go ahead and slide over to show my support for the Canes. It is what it is. So in that regard, I won't be a total sore loser. But with all that said, until next time, everybody, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, let us know what you think about the commentary in this or any other video. Hit that like button, and we'll catch you next time.
And the name is Dogon SS. And you can find me on Instagram at Dogon_SS, on YouTube, DraftKings, MySpace, X, Twitter. Hey man, if there's a social media platform, Dogon_SS is out there. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow, and all that good jazz. And as I say every week, guys, we greatly appreciate you guys for watching, liking, sharing, all right, and consciously leaving comments, all right. And because if you guys don't do that, Mark Sanchez might find you in a dark alley somewhere. All right. So we don't want that, man. All right. And as I say every time, guys, don't be too high, don't be too low. Keep it calm, keep it chill, keep it player. And don't let anybody get you off your pivot, including Benny the Butcher, who might call you guys a nerd for being on your square. All right. Hey, man, we greatly appreciate you guys for watching yet again. We've got more rings than Robert Ory over here. We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah, we done, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off before you can say go Canes, because I can't allow that.
Come on, bro. Say it with me, man.